Welcome to Fashion Neurosis.
Bella Freud gets rock star celebrities to lie on her couch and spill their most intimate secrets, all while she sells sweaters with a certain unprintable four-letter word modeled by none other than Kate Moss. And yes, of course, she's Sigmund Freud's great-granddaughter. If that sounds scandalous or just plain bizarre, consider this. What some saw as cheeky mischief, playing Freudian therapist in the fashion world, has now actually reshaped how style and the psyche intertwine. In an industry dismissed as superficial, Bella made talking about clothes feel deep. This misunderstood provocateur, with her punk streak and cerebral pedigree, ended up the very unlikely face of modern intellectualism. If you only have 30 seconds, here's the bottom line of this video. Bella Freud's secret was turning intellect into an aphrodisiac for style. She fused rock and roll rebellion with Freudian wit, crafted a blueprint for fashion that's as brainy as it is sultry. She grew up amid chaos, think bohemian communes and opium-laced nights, yet she spun that wild childhood into a persona of very cool restraint. She made sweaters that name-drop Beat Generation poets, like her famous Ginsberg is God jumper, and scents that wink at psychoanalysis, all to signal that smart is sexy. And it really is now. In short, Bella figured out how to make thinking glamorous. But if you'd like a bit more of an explanation, follow me. There's much more to unpack behind the legend of Bella Freud.
Welcome. I'm Kira, and this is your beauty blueprint.
I've spent a whole week researching, watching, and editing all things Bella Freud to distill her very essence and share the best of my findings with you. Oh, and as a special treat, I've designed for us a limited edition Bella Freud-inspired t-shirt just for this video's launch. So, what are the key ingredients of Bella Freud's persona? Let's stir the pot. First, there's that face, a feline gaze and a flirty beauty mark on her upper lip, a mole punctuating her top lip just so. Her hair is perpetually tousled, somewhere between post-punk rocker and convent schoolgirl chic, as if Joan Jett traded tips with a Victorian governess. Then there's that name, Freud. Being the great-granddaughter of the father of psychoanalysis comes with heavyweight baggage and cachet. And Bella plays it to the hilt now. Her fashion brand brims with sly references to her lineage and love of language, from a t-shirt declaring fashion neurosis to a perfume literally called psychoanalysis. She's built a client cult that includes Kate Moss, and now she's become a podcaster, but not just any podcaster. In her hit YouTube show, Fashion Neurosis, Bella welcomes A-list celebrities to recline on her own living room sofa, as if at therapy, probing their souls through the question of clothes. It's equal parts playful and profound, much like Bella herself. She's a heady cocktail of bohemian elegance, punk, and intellectual charm, truly one of a kind. Stick around, because by the end of this video, we'll serve up a quick breakdown of what we can learn, very practically speaking, from Bella Freud's unique style universe. You might just snag a page from her style blueprint for your own wardrobe. So settle in, grab a mint tea with a sprig of some very fresh mint, a nod to Bella's Moroccan childhood and her taste for the unconventional, or perhaps a chilled glass of sparkling water strewn with rose petals. Yes, Bella's 64th birthday party had guests sipping exactly that in her London boutique. Get comfortable, maybe even lie back on your nicest couch, and let's begin our analysis by understanding who Bella Freud actually is, and how she came to be the reigning fashion shrink. Here's a little backstory. Bella Freud was born in London in 1961. Her father was Lucian Freud, painter infamous for his uncompromising portraits and uncompromising love life, and her mother was Bernadine Coverley, a free-spirited young Englishwoman barely out of her teens. Bella's lineage is the stuff of cultural legend. She's the great-granddaughter of Sigmund Freud, something she was always aware of, even if she jokingly admits she hasn't read much of his work beyond half of the interpretation of dreams. But if you're imagining a pampered upbringing in some Freud family mansion, well, think again. Bella's early childhood was chaotic and often hand-to-mouth. It just felt like our life was in transit the whole time. She later said of those years, in the swinging 60s, while other kids in London were watching Mary Poppins, little Bella was being dragged on a Moroccan adventure. When she was 6, her mother whisked Bella off to Marrakesh. What followed was 18 months of chaos. Picture this. Little English girl in the late 60s, living out of a rundown hotel in Morocco. Her boho mom falling in with local mystics and gurus. Bella sold hand-sewn dolls on the street to make ends meet and dined on lentils and hope. She later recalled always being hungry, longing for the comforts of home, like a proper plate of mashed potatoes. At one point, her mother left Bella with strangers in Marrakesh, and actually lost track of her child's whereabouts for a harrowing stretch. Imagine 7-year-old Bella wandering a foreign city, not sure when or if Mom would ever come back. It was the kind of real-life drama that could scar a person for good. Yet, in hindsight, this crucible forged Bella's independence, and her lifelong fascination with what clothes can mean. In Marrakesh, she had only a few outfits to her name. She didn't want to wear the flowing caftans her hippie mother loved. Instead, she chose dressing like a boy to somehow steel herself against the shame of poverty. Even at 8 years old, Bella Freud understood that clothing can be armor, a lesson that would become a pillar of her philosophy later on. Eventually, in the late 60s, her father, who had been a distant, almost mythical figure in her early life, stepped in to help. Lucien Freud was brilliant and notoriously unorthodox. He fathered at least 14 children with numerous women, but he did have a soft spot for Bella. He arranged for her to spend time back in England with friends of his, aristocratic hippies traveling in caravans. In one hurtful scene, young Bella got called a hippie by a snobby village shopkeeper. She can still recall the exact scruffy outfit that provoked the remark, down to the blue jumper and kerchief she thought made her look like Heathcliff from Wuthering Heights. These moments of fashion-based identity crises were shaping her psyche. But living with the caravan folks introduced Bella to something novel: structure. One of Lucien's friends who took Bella in for a while enforced the novelty of bedtimes and daily routines. And to Bella's own astonishment, she loved it. After years of free-form bohemia, the girl discovered that order could be comforting. Realization that a little discipline could be liberating would become a credo for her. All this fantasy about chaos firing the creative process is a disingenuous load of crap. You can't do anything with chaos. It's like torture, exhausting and depressing, she said later on. Those words are Bella's North Star. Calm and control were the antidotes to her chaotic childhood. Yet, through her early teens, Bella's life remained unconventional. Her mother entered a relationship with a schoolteacher, so Bella spent ages 8 to 16 in the countryside, in her stepfather's cluttered house, while attending a progressive, some would say weird, Waldorf school. This was in the 70s. Think rustic commune meets Monty Python. At school, they weren't even allowed to wear black or have sharp-cornered forms around, due to some mystical Rudolf Steiner rules about harmony. To a burgeoning punk in training who adored her black clothes and sharp ankles, it was absurd. Like a red rag to a bull, she says. She hated the hypocrisy of her mum's new life, and she was often cast as the family scapegoat for voicing her discontent. In one vivid recollection, Bella remembers letting her pet rabbit's cage go filthy during a bout of adolescent depression, until the poor creature turned vicious, a disturbing metaphor for how she herself felt, hostile and trapped in a mess she couldn't control. Everyone around her was unhappy, she recalls, but I was the one that made everything intolerable. I was always just making disharmony. And rather than break, she plotted. Sure enough, right at 16, Bella escaped. She moved to London under the pretext of attending school, but promptly dropped out. London in the late 70s was punk rock heaven, and Bella dove in head first. She chopped her hair into a spiky punk crop and found a part-time job at Seditionaries, the legendary boutique run by Vivienne Westwood. To put it in perspective, Seditionaries, formerly SEX, was the epicenter of punk fashion, all torn tartan and t-shirts so obscene they could make a sailor blush. Young Bella loved it all. She wore a Westwood design known as the Snow White t-shirt, which featured X-rated cartoons of Disney characters doing things far from G-rated. It had a picture of, I think, 2 rabbits f***ing and some dwarves too, she later recalled matter-of-factly. This was her daily wear to work. It shocked some, but to Bella it was a manifesto. I thought that I had some interesting thoughts, even if I wasn't able to communicate them yet, and I wanted my clothes to reflect my internal life. Fashion became her language and her shield, a way to scream, "I'm not like the rest of you," without ever opening her mouth. That rebellion could have easily led Bella down a dark path. In fact, for a time it did. She ran with a wild crowd, went to all-night parties and squats, lived fast even by punk standards. I followed that tradition of going off the rails, she admits. But something pulled her back before it was too late, and once again, her father, Lucian, provided an anchor. Throughout her teens, Bella had been reconnecting with Lucian in small doses. Though he'd never been a conventional dad, he became a kind of ally to her, a co-conspirator in wit. He'd call her on the phone and they'd sit in comfortable silence when words failed. An enigmatic Prince Charming figure. He'd breeze into town in his Bentley and slip her crumpled banknotes. But he treated Bella as an equal mind. When she was 14, he famously took her to Soho's Colony Room Club, a dingy private den of artists and drunks, and scandalized everyone by ordering his underage daughter a vodka and lime and offering her a Gauloise cigarette. Far from corrupting her, that gesture made Bella feel respected. I was being treated like I had a brain, like I had an opinion. It was so thrilling, she remembers. For context, the Colony Room's owner, Muriel Belcher, greeted everyone with, "Hello, cunty," a vulgar catchphrase that Bella would later immortalize on t-shirts. This is the kind of cultural capital she inherited. By the time she was 18, Bella was spending time sitting for portraits in father's studio, literally lying nude on his artist's couch as he painted her into immortality. It might sound strange, but posing for her father's paintings became a form of therapy and even survival. It made me remember to be attached to life, she says of those long nighttime sessions. The discipline of showing up regularly, holding a pose for hours, and engaging in deep conversation with Lucian kept her from drifting further into self-destruction, and it plunged her into the rich world of art and literature. Lucienne would have her read Balzac and Flaubert to him, or play Fats Waller records while they took breaks. Bella was absorbing culture like a sponge. It was also during this period that Bella made a pivotal decision. She had to make something of her life. She recalls thinking, "I want to do something, but I don't totally know what it is." Finally, she realized that while she wasn't a fine artist like her father, "I can't do that," she conceded early on. But she could direct her creativity into fashion. Fashion, after all, had been her armor, her voice, her obsession since she was a shy little girl. It made perfect sense. And so in her early 20s, Bella did something a bit cinematic. She fell madly in love and ran off to Rome. The man in question was Prince Dado Ruspoli, an Italian aristocrat 36 years her senior. Yes, you heard that right, who had been part of Fellini's Dolce Vita set in the 60s. Bella met him in London, and despite the eyebrow-raising age gap, she was smitten by this worldly, decadent charmer. Off to Rome she went, ostensibly to attend the Accademia di Costume e di Moda. In reality, her year in Rome was less about classrooms and more about an education in pleasure, and its limits. She moved into Dado's grand but fading palazzo on the Via del Corso. Days blended into nights, long boozy lunches, naps in velvet kaftans, a general dolce far niente. Every evening at 7 p.m., like clockwork, Dado and Bella would lock themselves in the bedroom, don flowing robes, and light up his opium pipe. We would talk and drift off into a blissed-out reverie for the next couple of hours until dinner, she wrote of that routine. It was an intoxicating life, one might say scandalous for a Freud offspring, but it couldn't last. Bella barely attended classes. "I didn't learn anything," she laughs. And after about a year, reality set in. If she stayed in this lotus-eater paradise, she'd never actually create anything. "I knew that I couldn't live my life unless I made something, and I couldn't possibly create anything there," she concluded. So she left the prince and the palazzo behind. Back in London, Bella threw herself into craft with vengeance. She landed a job as an assistant to none other than Vivienne Westwood. A perfect full-circle moment. Given Westwood had always been her punk mentor from afar, Bella soaked up everything. How to cut a pattern, how to produce a collection, and perhaps most importantly, how to combine seduction with wit. "I learned everything from Vivienne, really," Bella says. This was a PhD in fashion subversion. By the early 90s, Bella was ready to launch her own label, and unsurprisingly, she did have some help from family to do it. Lucian, proud of his daughter's new direction, provided a bit of seed funding and even hand-drew her logo. A line drawing of his whippet dog, Pluto, with Bella Freud scrolled beneath. Yes, one of the world's great artists doodled her logo, talk about inheritance. He handed her that little sketch unexpectedly during a tea break from painting. Her early collections burst onto the London fashion scene in 1990 with a vibe that was hard to pin down, and all the more intriguing for it. Remember how she adored order? Well, her first runway shows featured cool young women, including her pal Kate Moss, strutting in outfits that flirted with primness. But there was always a twist, a hemline daringly short, a menswear element thrown in, a whiff of 70s sleaze under the ladylike veneer. One reviewer nailed it by saying her clothes are precision-pitched between formal and irreverent, soft and severe. That contrast, good girl versus bad girl, buttoned up versus rock and roll, was pure Bella Freud. Her voice as a designer spoke in a posh English accent with a subversive giggle. The overall result? Perhaps a tomboy femme fatale could describe it. Bella herself said, a kind of punk rocker who appreciates classy things. Words and slogans also became her signature. Remember, she's a woman who cherishes language, the most important, influential, and most beautiful thing that exists. Her collections often featured a word or phrase as the pièce de résistance. The fashion press and cool girls went crazy for these. Suddenly, wearing Bella Freud was a shorthand for, yes, I read poetry and watched French New Wave, but I also look damn good in this tiny sweater. Any questions? To this day, Bella Freud's company runs with a tight team of about 10. And her only boutique is a jewel box of a store in London. It's more salon than shop. For her 64th birthday, she even threw a party in there, filling it with artists, aristocrats, and rock stars. Bella herself, by the way, hasn't touched alcohol in decades. After the wild youth, she prefers clarity. Yet, the story doesn't end there, because Bella Freud now pulled off one more unexpected act. Around 2024, in her early 60s, she embarked on a venture that made even the cynical fashion world sit up and say, wait, she's doing what now? She launched a podcast, and not a gossipy, fluff podcast about trends either. Bella created Fashion Neurosis, which is part talk show, part therapy session. The premise, each week a notable guest, designers, actors, writers, rock musicians, comes to Bella's own living room, lies down on her couch, and talks about emotional interplay between their clothes and their life. On camera, we see Bella perched in her father's old leather armchair, asking gentle but probing questions in her low, hypnotic voice.
Can you tell me what you're wearing today and why you chose these particular clothes?
It's both tongue-in-cheek and oddly profound. And guess what? It works. Brilliantly. Her guests end up divulging intimate memories and vulnerabilities. Rick Owens opened up about having little girl nipples as a teen and body image issues. Julianne Moore recounted the childhood humiliation of everyone seeing her underpants when she wore a frilly dress to the dentist. Courtney Love cried about lost loves. Kate Blanchett mused about power suits. Even soccer bad boy Eric Cantona waxed on how a change of wardrobe signaled his father's midlife crisis. Vogue called it one of the best podcasts of 2024, and The New Yorker profiled Bella with the headline, Talking Cure, marveling at how Freud was making psychoanalysis sexy again for a new generation. Now, pause for a second and appreciate the poetry here. Bella Freud, who once ran from therapy-worthy chaos, has in her 60s become a sort of therapist figure herself. She insists she's only playing a therapist, yet the revelations her guests make are very real. And Bella doesn't hold back from sharing her own stories, either. She often counters a guest's confession with one of her own. With her friend, Nick Cave, she reminisced about the heroin habit she watched him maintain back in the day. With Kate Moss, Bella swapped tales of both having posed nude while pregnant for Lucian Freud's paintings. Who would have thought we'd hear Kate Moss psychoanalyzed by Freud? The podcast is full of these gems. If anyone is being treated within this configuration of couch and chair, it is Bella Freud herself, a reporter suggested. Bella's response? It is. It's such a perfect result. After a lifetime of orbiting around important conversations, she's finally at the center of one, in control and at ease. At this point, why don't we indulge the question of her persona? She has a mystique, an elusive quality that sets her apart in this age of oversharing. We might compare her to the 19th century dandies or to a Warhol superstar, creatures who are their own greatest work of art. What's truly unique to Bella Freud is how she integrates all the pieces of her life into a coherent personal brand that feels authentic. She'll casually mention her father's Bluebeard-like behavior with women, but also defend the complexity of those May-December relationships. She doesn't shy away from the uncomfortable. For instance, she's voiced nuanced opinions on the now taboo topic of older men with younger women, basically saying, sometimes it's predatory and sometimes it's consensual and oddly symbiotic. Some of it should be condemned, and some of it just doesn't fit into what's right and wrong. This kind of non-judgmental, deeply examined viewpoint is pure Bella. It's the psyche of a woman who grew up inside Bohemia. She's seen things, she's not easily shocked, and she won't paint the world in black and white morality. She's also a big believer that hurt and hardship are not the end of the world. They're even valuable. It's not the worst thing in the world for someone to hurt you. It doesn't define you, it's just something that happened, she says. That philosophy no doubt stems from surviving her own childhood scrapes and losses. Before we wrap up, as promised, let's break down Bella's style and see what practical lessons we can draw. Our little Bella Freud beauty blueprint for anyone watching who wants to channel a bit of her vibe. Superficially, Bella's look is distinct, but surprisingly attainable. She often sticks to a kind of uniform, one that combines masculine and feminine in a delicious balance. Think well-tailored black trousers or a slim-cut three-piece suit, a Freud favorite, paired with a soft, almost demure blouse. Next, keep it high quality but low fuss. Bella's clothes are beautifully made. She's meticulous about craft, but never fussy. She likes comfortable fabrics, soft wool, velvet, cotton, that you can live in. Importantly, her hair, makeup, and overall style philosophy is less is more. Bella's fresh scrubbed complexion and messy hair are part of her charm. She doesn't cake on contour or chase perfection. Embrace imperfect beauty. Maybe it's, yes, your mole. No hiding under layers of paint is key here. Bella once even said she was happy to age and didn't mind her grey streaks because, in her words, she'd rather be interesting looking than pretty. So liberate yourself from the pressure to be overly polished. A bit of rawness is infinitely more intriguing. I would like to ask of you a tiny little favor. Please do give this video a like and hit subscribe. It truly helps, and I've got a lot more coming your way. Let me know in the comments, what's your fashion neurosis moment? I always read every single comment, and I'm dying to know. And perhaps consider becoming a channel member. You'll be supporting my work, getting access to exclusive podcast episodes, stickers, and special icons next to your name. And I want to give a heartfelt thank you to all our current members and patrons. Alright, loves. It's time to fold up this analysis. As Bella might suggest, the next time you dress up, remember you're not just adorning your body. You're telling your story. And your story can be whatever you dare to make it. I've queued up the next chapter for you here. I'll see you soon. Love, Kira. Now go create your own blueprint.